Okay. That even looks better.
Hey.
That even looks better. All right. So let me push live to Facebook and we should be able to rock and roll.
I like rock and rolling.
Apparently. I didn't know. I was like, okay, what kind of guy is this guy? I mean, is he like real circumspect and real proper and what have you? And I just heard you cussing. I'm like, oh, all right.
I grew up from an Irish heritage, so
it works well since he's half Irish,
right?
And I'm an old Army German guy, so yeah.
All right, okay. I think we're good. I am so sorry about the whole delay stuff, guys. My apologies. But I think we're good. So I'll clean this up and do an intro separate and what have you. So welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, guys. Episode 201. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm very, very, very good. So Darin, when we first set this up, I got, correct me if I'm wrong. My impression is that you guys train together or work together in the same school or something, but I think now, after having done my research, that might not be correct, right?
No, so I got introduced to Larry Hartsell's organization through his dad.
Okay.
So Bob Ryan, and then I would come over and do privates with him and mess around with Brandon.
So the infamous Robert Bob Ryan of integrated combats, he is what puts you all together.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got that straightened out now. I feel happy. All right. All right. So, okay. So who wants to go first and fill us in on martial arts background and what have you?
No, I don't care. I'll go first. Sure.
Okay. So I know that Robert Busey features in your history.
Bussy, yes.
Bussy, right. And that's a ninjutsu lineage, correct?
Correct. If you go back far enough, he started with Korean arts, like around this area. That's unfortunately all we had. We had a lot of Taekwondo, Hapkido.
Right.
And if you didn't know either one of those, you would just put up a karate sign and call that cool. So that's the way it was. And we were fly over country for a while. And then when he was 16, he started really getting into the Toge Kure Ryu ninjutsu style. So old man, let's see. Yep. I'm getting old, brain fart, forgot it. But he went over to Japan at 16, and he was one of the first white guys to go over there and do it. And he brought it back. And we did that for a long time, and I did that in my early adolescence. So I started when I was 6. So I'm coming on my 38th year of training. Okay. And we did all the old Budokan stuff, and for better or worse, just the way it was. And then he broke off and went, a lot of this shit doesn't work. Let's make it so it can work.
Right.
So he took a lot of Jeet Kune Do philosophy and put it into his system and said, no, it doesn't work. All right, let's figure this out. So when I got older and you got into black belt testing or black belt classes, we pretty much just beat the shit out of each other for an hour, The kids would leave and we'd lock the door and we'd go upstairs, and if you want to call it pressure testing, I think it was just an excuse to hit each other. And we'd hit each other and grapple and see what would work and what wouldn't, and found the stuff that worked.
Right.
Now that was to the dismay of a lot of other styles. And we had an open door policy that you want to bring it,
Okay.
We'll meet you. That's fine.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And, at that time when I was really young, Jeremy Horn came from our style, and I rolled around with Jeremy a lot. He was a good friend. Tried to hit on my sister a lot, so it was fun. We beat the crap out of each other. So, but that was my real first introduction into hard style, I guess, you know?
Right.
And I like getting hit. So I said, all right, well, I'll go into boxing. And I did boxing and then went into kickboxing around here. And I found I could sort of kick okay. So I wanted to still go in the Olympics. So I joined Kim's and he tried to get me to the Olympics and went and trained at the OTC for a bit. That was fun. And then went into the Army and we did other stuff. But
Right. And at some point there was a delving into Hwarang Do, right?
right.
Yeah.
So as soon as my last year in the Army, so when I was 22, I got into Hwarang Do.
Okay.
And I found a guy that was close to my area when I came back to Nebraska. I still had to drive 6 hours into Iowa to do it. But
Oh.
I would do that. Oh yeah, if I wanted any training, it was driving.
Oh my God.
8 hours here, 8 hours there, 10 hours there.
Yeah. Yeah. That Hwarang Do is kind of esoteric, right? It's kind of exotic, isn't it?
You could say that.
Okay.
If depending on what you believe or feel, you know, it's supposed to be the culmination of all the Korean arts. So, and we did practice everything. To me, it felt like when I got into the Filipino arts, they felt very similar. You had to know your weapons. You had to know your ground game, your kicking game, your punching game, put them all together. And so it felt easy transition.
Okay. Damn. He should be exhausted after that story, right, Brandon?
That's what the beer is for.
All right. So Brandon, I don't think you are as old as he is. And,
No, I'm only 37, sir.
okay. So is your history as long as his?
Actually, I think it's around the same wavelength. I started really young as a kid watching my father teach Ed Parker style Kempo with an M. And being born with a disability, I was always really astonished by Kempo because it had really fast striking, it had throws, and it had submission in the style. So I gravitated towards that quickly because I love the idea of taking someone by their clothes and throwing them to the floor.
Okay.
And I can remember getting out of my wheelchair as a kid and trying to mimic all the stuff my dad was doing in karate. Fast forward a couple of years, we go down to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where we meet the late amazing Sifu Larry Hartsell, who was, as you know, one of Bruce Lee's original backyard students.
Right.
And this is or just after UFC 1, where Royce Gracie won the first UFC.
Yeah.
So again, watching Sifu Larry punch and trap into grappling groundwork, that I was so amazed as a little boy in a wheelchair watching this. And when we took a break in that first seminar, I remember my dad picking me up out of my wheelchair and putting me on the wrestling mat, and Sifu Hartsell teaching me a figure 4 choke, or as we know in BJJ as a triangle choke. And it was that moment where I realized, as a small boy with a disability, I could defend myself in close quarters.
Right.
So my passion in the arts through the years, even though I'm good at boxing and mediocre in Kali, my passion is that the infighting or trapping and grappling.
Well, which makes perfect sense, right? I mean, considering.
Right. And so I also have a purple belt in BJJ, and I spend most of my time these days working with other adapted students.
Right.
I've worked with people that are visually impaired in various degrees, different types of CP, amputee in various levels. Right. You name it, I've worked with people of those natures.
Okay, so give me a second. I hate to interrupt you. See, because this is where I'm gonna piss people off, and I might lose a couple of friends.
That's okay.
but I remember seeing. I couldn't find it afterwards, but I remember when Kwon Woolley was on the program a couple of weeks ago. I remember seeing your comment, right? How relevant. And for those of you who don't remember, Kwon Woolley is the founder in Ireland of wheelchair self-defense and wheelchair Jeet Kune Do. And I remember your commenting, I don't know if you saw this, Brandon, but I saw the comment after I closed the program, and somebody was saying, well, how does a guy in a wheelchair close the gap? And I thought to myself, what kind of moron are you?
Oh yeah.
To think that a guy, I mean, right, but it gets worse. It gets worse. Yeah. Today, I see another comment, not about the program with Kwon, but another one of these Jeet Kune Do definitions.
Yeah.
And the comment is, Jeet Kune Do is simply how to put your fist in a person's face or your foot in a person's groin. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I thought Jeet Kune Do was supposed to be expansive. I didn't know that it was limited to closing the gap, putting a fist in a face and a foot in a groin. I had no idea.
No.
It sounds like Krav Maga to me.
Yeah. Sounds like their niche screen is Master Ken.
Right? Okay, so when I saw this, I thought, all right, I'm gonna get from these two guys tonight their breakdown and their definitions of what Jeet Kune Do encompasses. So, and anybody could go first.
Okay, so what I think of Jeet Kune Do is, in the words of Bruce Lee, is using what works and rejecting what doesn't. So when I was in college, I'll just be very honest, I got very disenchanted with the reality of the Jeet Kune Do community. So where I just focused on wrestling and jujitsu, because clinch fighting, because those were the areas of combat that spoke to me, you know, personally. Right. I got so tired of the community arguing over who did what correctly and trying to be so fixated with the shoe size of Bruce Lee and how much weight he lifted, you know, all the politics.
Yeah.
And I had people back in a couple of years ago tell me that if I wasn't teaching a Paksao Lapsao, I wasn't being true to Jeet Kune Do. And it just made me want to vomit.
Right.
But I had rediscovered how to make trapping work for me. And that's mostly when someone's hands are already on me.
Of course.
You know, I'm not going to get a high attachment and then, you know, do whatever.
Right.
But I've rediscovered my love for Jeet Kune Do in the past couple of years.
Okay.
So.
Darin.
My turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To me,
and anybody who heard him say that the thing about kicking earlier, I've seen him kick. All right, he still has it.
Some things have gone away. To me, Jeet Kune Do, just okay. So the philosophy side of it.
Okay.
I've had many different arts I've trained in that I think, whether or not they wanted to say it or not, embrace the philosophy side of it.
Explain that. Explain that.
Stepping away from their traditional from their side. You know, everybody's done it. They've done one style or another where you have to learn, okay, this is a low block and this is an L block and the rising block, you know. Everybody had to learn it for it. Now, there's a place and a time for that. If you don't have any sort of function, I got to teach you to walk first before I can teach you to run. And I hate going and doing seminars when I was younger and walking into places where, you know, I still do to this day. If I walk in, I'm like, no, terrible, wrong, terrible, no. You know, it's like, who taught you? I don't understand. You know?
Right.
And they say, well, this is the way we're taught. I'm like, well, they didn't. No, we got to start all over. You know, before I can get you to here, I need you to do this right.
Yeah.
So instead of them being spoon-fed by their instructor way back when saying, we need to do it this way because this is the way I did it.
Right.
Well, maybe he doesn't do it that way. You know, I've sat in on many a test where I can see an individual doing a test and I look over and I'm like, what's the break they got to do? Because everybody has to break, right?
Right.
Like, well, they got to do a flying kick. And I'm like, she or he has 2 bad knees and is 50.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, well, it's what's required. Well, maybe you need to think a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not a freaking good idea. And sure enough, they're like, well, that's the way it is. So he or she did it. This time it was a girl. She did it. Sure, she broke, and it was like flywood. It's not plywood. It's flywood. Like you go, bing, and it breaks. You know.
Okay. Good.
You know, simple physics will tell you if you jump and land it, it's gonna break.
Right.
But yeah, she fell terribly, tore the knee out right there in the middle of the test, and I was like, I just looked down the line. I was like, you stupid sons of, you know, I was like, could have done something else. You know,
Right. Yeah.
adapt a little bit.
I used to tease my Taekwondo colleagues, you know, because everybody used to learn how to count to 10 in Korean.
Yeah.
So so one day I said, oh, okay, I get it. I go, what's 11?
Yeah. Oh.
Exactly.
Well, we don't need to know that.
Oh,
So, yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that.
Right. Yeah.
So, back to that. So Jeet Kune Do for me, once I started, you know, I had to read the Tao a lot. And I was kind of like Dwight is, you know, I was the rebel in my town. You know, it was a very systematic style. You either did this or this, you know, you did this or this.
Yeah.
You know, you can't kick that way. You need to kick this way because that's the karate. I'm like, shut up. It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
So then when I started reading that, I was like, this book says it's fine. You know, it's a philosophy with training manual underneath. And that's why I went, okay, this is what I'm going to do from now on. It's fine.
Right. Okay.
Why do I need to learn a 720-degree kick? It's cool. It brings in people. And it's a great demo. I'll never do it.
Right.
But how about we just, you know, do a nice jig tech and call it a day?
Yeah. Brandon, so somebody is going to, I'll be remiss if I don't point out to you, like you said, in the words of Bruce Lee, absorb what is useful and what have you. And as you may or may not know, there's a big contention about that because it's not found anywhere in Bruce Lee's notes, those exact words. And so some people are unable to, they can project a lot of other stuff onto Bruce Lee, but they cannot project onto Bruce Lee the idea that he might have expressed an idea like absorb what is useful.
yes.
But because he didn't write it anywhere in the notes,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, no, that's not Bruce. That's Dan and Asano, you know, and not really Bruce and whatever. But so I want you to explain a little bit more deeply how the Jeet Kune Do, since you are not able to do the footwork, right? And you're not able to do the trapping from a standing position or whatever, right? So I want you to go a little bit deeper into what it is in Jeet Kune Do, what it is, or what it is that you take from Jeet Kune Do to develop yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, look, whether Bruce Lee said it, you know, flat out or not, he did it in expression.
Okay.
You go into the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and I see fencing footwork. I see Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. I see judo. I see catch wrestling. If that's not taking what is useful and rejecting what is useless,
right?
I.e. him having a huge bone to pick with karate people and calling that not useful. I don't know what else to call it. Like, and so to think that it's got to be like the gospel written down is very problematic for me. And that's just another area to argue.
Yeah. And
I really don't care about that.
Why? But why do you think so many people do?
Because they have nothing else better to do with their lives. You know, and look, and with all due respect, if people want to act like Bruce Lee and dress like him, that's fine. But my motive in life is to keep people safe.
Right.
And so I work with the worst case scenario. Like when I'm with Coach Darin, we work, you know, what to do if someone has a knife to your throat or a gun to your stomach.
Yeah.
You know, we work those areas because those situations do happen. There was a woman 3 months ago after church, a guy came into her home and stabbed her 20 times. Without much reason, just killed her.
Mhm.
And so those are the realities that I gravitate towards,
Right.
because they exist. And a lot of people are so shocked that, you know, myself or Colm even talk about the reality of that happening, but they do. And so for me to answer those questions, those realities, I have to seek out other options that might be beneficial to me or somebody else
Mhm.
in those situations. And so that requires me as an instructor to look outside of myself and my boundaries to find answers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question.
I want you to talk also. Tell us about the origins of adaptive martial arts sciences. How all of that came about.
Yeah, so that started off. I originally named it Adaptive Defense Methods, and that started off in college about 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, I always had a passion to share what I knew with other disabled individuals.
Right.
I remember training with Eric Paulson back in the day, and I thought, dude, if I could do this stuff on my knees or sitting down, really anybody could.
Mhm.
And so again, this is like pre-internet, no Facebook, no Instagram, no social media. So my dad went over to like a Kinko's and made a flyer, and I started going around my high school passing out flyers to people that had disabilities.
Right.
I got no traction at all, zero. So I put that dream away for a good 10 plus years. So I'm in college now,
Mhm.
and that desire came back to me, that dream came back to me. And I thought, okay, now I'm gonna dust this off and see what I can do. So I went, and there's this thing called YouTube. So I went on YouTube and like looked at wheelchair attacks. And what I saw was horrific. You know, people being stabbed, beat on, thrown out of their chairs. And I thought, what I've been taught as far as like the trapping and everything in Jeet Kune Do, that's not going to stop the atypical person that wants to do me harm or anybody else harm.
Mhm.
So I started evolving a system in my mind that involved CQC, or close quarter combat,
Okay.
where someone was already up close to me, and I relied on the grappling that Sifu Hartsell taught me.
Right.
But I also, you know, blended Greco-Roman wrestling and pummeling and hand fighting and a lot of other systems to be of benefit to people that had less mobility. So it's a lot of hugging and clenching and controlling of limbs.
Mhm.
So a person can't punch you or pull out their knife or whatever it is.
Okay. And this was pre BJJ.
Yeah. Well, no, I had been under Eddie Bravo's style of system.
Okay. Right. 10th Planet.
For a good while, and then I switched over to Wahoo Jiu-Jitsu, which is the gi based system, because it's a lot slower.
Okay.
And I feel it's actually a bit more realistic than no-gi per se.
Okay. Right. And do you blog every day? Because I found a ton of stuff.
No, I don't blog every day. I just strike when the iron's hot.
Ah, all right. Yeah, because I saw all these posts, and I'm like, this guy's more active than me. And
I don't know about that.
Right?
Well, I also work as an online personal trainer, so like
Mhm.
social media is how I get all my work during the day.
Okay, got it. Right.
So that's why I'm on social media so much.
Okay. And all right, now I got to bring this up. Sorry to be ignoring you, Darin, but he's infinitely more interesting than you are.
He is. I mean, look at him. Yeah, he is. I have a great time working with him.
All right. We got to talk about the video of you and the hill and the weight vest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the weight vest video is not the first time you attacked that hill.
No, it's not.
All right. You got to tell us about that.
So my dad, he's the genesis of the idea. Or he was like, one day he was like, you know what? You need to go up that hill. And I was like, you know what? I do. And so I went up that hill that first time, and it was relatively easy the first time.
Okay.
But I was still breathing. I was still breathing heavy, but that didn't gas me out. So winter came and all that hunky-dory stuff. And then when it got warmer, I was like, Dad, I got a weight vest now. So why don't I just put all the 18 pounds on my back and go up that hill?
Yeah.
And so that was infinitely tougher. But I put myself through the rigors of the physical suffering every day, because there are people in the world that can't do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I owe it to them to honor them with my ability to move.
Yeah. See, Darin. So this is way more interesting than arguing the shit back and forth about, right lead, left lead. Who the hell cares?
It is. It's
right?
way more.
Who the hell cares?
Yep.
That doesn't contribute. This is a guy that contributes, right?
Yep.
That shit doesn't do. I'm sorry.
No.
I don't even mean to curse.
No, it's good. I speak fluently your language, so you're good. That's what I would say to a lot of my students and co-instructors. I said, if you want to train somebody with, lack for a better term, a disability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's easy to train a freaking athlete. I get somebody come in here who's like 20, 25, just, built to the top, just full of fucking muscle. And you're like, yeah, I can train this kid. Problem, he gets down, all of a sudden, he can't do the full splits, but he's pretty close. You're like, I can do this from my phone. This is not even hard,
Yeah.
And I put that same guy who thinks he's really good at training somebody, give him somebody like Brandon. I'm like, okay, make it work.
Right.
Yeah. Take your system where you go, this is what I teach, A to Z.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I'm like, no, make it work.
Yeah. I mean, it's all part of the idea, the Jeet Kune Do idea of making yourself familiar with that which is unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge. Any idiot can keep doing the same thing over and over again, and believing this is it. This is all it takes.
Yeah.
And never step outside of the comfort zone.
No.
All right. Yeah.
You get a little scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we got up to Hwarang Do, right? Okay, we got more to talk about.
Yeah.
So what came next?
Well, then I really started getting into Muay Thai, and then I started meeting my wife about that time. And her dad was a monk in Cambodia, and he saw me this.
Stop. There's a joke in here somewhere, right? Is that true?
That's true. Yeah.
Your father-in-law was a monk in Cambodia. You're not setting up. Okay. All right. Go.
And he was just this little peaceful man, but he loved seeing me train, And, he came over and he couldn't speak English, but he would tell my older brother-in-law, Ni at the time, and Ni would tell me, and he started showing me basically Muay Bran. So and he's like, oh, no. Like this. Like, okay. And he's only like 4'10". And then he'd do it. He's like, he'd laugh. So then I started, I'm like, well, I have no Muay Bran around here. I got Muay Thai.
Right.
So I started doing Muay Thai a little bit and did some amateur stuff. And we'd have that on base on Friday night fights. And you could just like, all right, I'll take whoever, whatever. And if you weren't out doing bivouac or something, you would do fighting. And I didn't get to look like this for nothing. I got my ass beat a lot. So lots of broken stuff. But, I learned to bob and slip a little bit from that. But then after that, started getting into my profession as a lineman. I started making money, being able to afford to go places.
Mhm.
And I started to go to Ron Balicki stuff in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And then I met a lot of Ron's friends over there. And then he was like, you should come out to my camps. I'm like, what's this camp stuff? I'm like, well, at that time it was 4 day long. I said, sure. Where's that? And it's in California. And I was like, oh, my sister's in California. That's cheap. Let's do this. So, and I would do that. And then, so I've probably been with Ron now for 13 years. And you've interviewed a lot of the guys that I run with right there. So Randy, Sierra and Peter Wynn,
Mhm.
you know, Troy Miller. I
Yeah.
guess we're the old guys in that group.
Hey man, I'm trying to get to everybody before I die.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to get to everybody twice or 3 times before I die. Right? That's the whole thing. So this idea then, see, because we fight this, and when I say we, I mean people like us who have an all-encompassing view as to what Jeet Kune Do is. We fight this all the time. There's the thing about, you heard the one about Jeet Kune Do people being jacks of all trades.
Mm,
You ever heard? You ever had to deal with that one?
yeah.
How did you reply to it?
Well, it depends on if I'm drunk or not. So I said, well, it's good to know 10% about everything than 90% about only this one thing.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
You know, I've had really good, I started messing around with this guy in my little town that's a suburb of Omaha. Okay. So if nobody knows where Omaha at, it's like smack dab in the middle of the USA. But you probably don't because you fly over it. So, but in my little town that's to it, you know, I started messing around with this Indonesian guy. His name is Mani Panaya. And he liked what we were doing at that time. In buses, our style is pretty much just like Hartsell. We started long distance, went into boxing, trap, takedown,
Right.
you know, finish it out.
Right.
So I would show him that, and he would start showing me his town Sila. And that's what kind of got me going into, well, there's other stuff out there. Not in my town, but
Right.
if I wait for the next person to move in and say, hey, what do you know?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
the only other thing we could do around this town was there's a large American Indian presence where I live, just north of us.
Mhm.
And so every year when they'd have their get together, week-long party basically. Yeah, great wrestling. I learned to really wrestle hard. These guys don't pull no punches and they cheat. So, you know, they're throwing cheap shots, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But hearing people saying you're a jack of all trades, I'm like, well, you only got one life.
Right.
How many times do you got to throw that reverse punch? I think you got it by now, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
move on.
Yeah.
And you can throw that reverse punch great now, 25. Call me back in 25 years.
Yeah.
And let me see how you look. You probably
Right.
go, oh, well, that shoulder's gone. I know this shoulder's gone. I can't throw my overhand like I used to. You got to move on.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't do that if you're stuck in that system where like, well, it should be this way, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that shit don't work no more. What do you got to say now? You know?
Brandon, I mean, since the word adaptive is of such importance for you,
Yeah.
like what's some of the things that your clients come, you know, ask you about, how, like modifications, I guess, how to make things work? What are some of the common issues that you come across?
So one thing that comes to mind right now is a couple of years ago, I had a girl, she had CP, but her hips were medically fused. So she couldn't turn her hips or waist the way you or I could.
Yeah.
So one of the things that scared her was some guy mounting her, you know, choking her, punching her, whatever. She was at this BJJ school in town, and I remember her telling me the story and me wanting to go over to that instructor and give him a piece of my mind, because as I said, her hips were fused, and the common BJJ reaction is to do a trap and roll, escape, or upa, you know, and then you get into the guy's guard. Well, my friend, you can't do that if you don't have hip mobility to turn over.
Right.
And so she'd be in class and her instructors would be yelling at her, shrimp, chop and roll. You can't do that if your hips don't work. So she came to me and I taught her basically to, you know, angle her head. So if a guy's punching, move your head, slip, clinch, hug the person. But then we got into using chi style and the energy and learning to lop style the guy's arm at an angle to create that distance where he can't punch anymore.
Right.
And across her body.
Right.
And so I've had people that have no legs work with me. And so I basically teach them, if a person's close to you, mitigate their ability to do further damage. So again, that's controlling big parts of the arm, their head, hitting low to control the head, or even using that space to grapple to get to a weapon of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, visually impaired people. So obviously you need to learn to feel. So I would do a lot of chi style, pummeling with a visually impaired person.
Yeah.
And it really works. It really works with these people because they need to stay close, because at a distance it's not going to help them much. So I haven't really worked with like any hearing impaired people, although I want to. I've worked with people with severe autoimmune diseases that have like no energy, and so, or like arthritis. So then I teach them like more of a Filipino Kali lock flow with the wrist locks, or Aikido, or Japanese Jitsu, things of that nature.
Yeah. So you said you sucked at the Kali.
The stick parts, because I only got like one good arm, so to speak, but I can do the wrist locks and the grappling.
Okay. Well, maybe you need to talk to Kwon about that, because I think single stick features pretty highly in what he does.
I can see that.
Yeah. You might need to get together with him. So what's the plan for taking adaptive martial arts sciences to the next level?
So I went through a really, really rough patch where all the students that I did have just up and left me with no real warning or answer. And so I went through a really kind of depressive period where I deleted all my original content. I was just that frustrated. I was like, screw it. So now I'm working on getting more video content up in the near future. And I would like to start teaching seminars again, but in this COVID time, it's a very hard thing. So, but that's the future, because I've taught at like a adaptive CrossFit event to hundreds of adaptive athletes.
Oh,
and, yeah. And I'll tell you something else that's really just always shocking to me is I started out wanting to teach adaptive people, but little did I know that able-bodied people would want to learn from me as well. So throughout the years at my prior job, I got to work with law enforcement and people of like Department of Health and Human Services. I've worked with, you know, veterans that are just coming home that have post-traumatic stress. And so it's really shocking to think that me gets to help somebody else that doesn't have a disability.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah. Not everybody who is disabled, as they call it, not everybody has that mindset of, I gotta make it, I gotta get through this. So it's even, to me, it's even it's stupid when an able-bodied person is like, oh, I don't know, maybe this, right? So when you come across somebody who is challenged but doesn't have the spirit, what do you do to help them to cultivate that spirit?
You know, as a health coach, that's most of my job now is cultivating that positive mindset into people. I mean, I was raised with parents that basically told me go after it.
Yeah.
That was the mindset. And there's not one formulaic statement that you can give to someone to make that switch turn on. It's even when I'm working with an in-person client or an online client, it's a gradual process.
Okay.
Change happens over time. So if I can get a client to eat one healthy meal in a day, that can roll over into more, and then they start to see the actual change happen in their brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you really just, even as a martial artist, you have to get a student to see how much they're worth. And once they see how much they're worth, then that warrior spirit comes out of them. Then they want to fight.
Yeah.
Then they don't see themselves as a victim.
Right.
That's what I tell everybody that I work with is like, if your life is on the line, you become that coked out Mike Tyson and you give that person all the hell you can give them.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I got it.
Darin, I see you nodding your head behind there. What have you learned from this guy?
Oh,
well, he's taught me more. Like,
it's fun when I mess around with him because then I'll take it to some of my students and then I'll play around.
Yeah.
And you know, we would do stuff where you would pin them against the wall and somebody would get mount and you'd have a survival drill, some kind of whatever. And I'd have some of my, you know, BJJ guys. I'm like, all right, give me your hands. And I'd put on gloves, put on boxing gloves, and then I duct tape them. I'm like, do it now. Now you kind of have a bit of a feeling what it's like to lose something.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And then I would take it and then I put it along their side and then we'd tape it around their body. I'm like, now do it. It's a little harder now. What happens when you lose that appendage?
Right.
Oh, I guess you can't do all that. No, you can't. You know, it's just amazing. It's almost you're sitting across from him. You got a bowl, and you're like, ready?
Right. Okay.
Do you need a little bit more? Oh, okay.
Okay.
You know?
All right. So listen, I don't think I've been pretty much all over this country. A lot of it when I worked in the airlines, and then a lot of it when I was following Sifu and Asano around, but I don't think I've ever been to Nebraska.
Not much.
Okay, so forgive my ignorance, right? So what is Wahoo?
Wahoo?
Yeah. Why is it called Wahoo martial arts? Is that a Nebraska thing?
It was the place where you would send letters for David Letterman. You'd always say Wahoo, Nebraska, but it's a nothing. I mean, the majority of the towns in Nebraska consist of like, okay, Omaha, big metro town, 350,000 inner, 500 some outers, you know. Then you'll go through little towns that are like 10,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, you know. Wahoo has maybe 5,000 people.
Okay.
So it's a really small town, but it's close to where my suburb is, and you know, I have a lot of friends there.
Yeah. Okay. And that's your place, right?
That's my place, yeah.
Okay. How long have you had that?
I've been there for probably only 5 or 6 years. I had a rift with an instructor in the town I live in who basically said, you can't go anywhere and learn this stuff. And I'm like, see you later, man. It's like, I don't like that kind of person, you know?
Right.
And so then I had a guy up in Wahoo that actually owned the place and he told me to come up there and said, yeah, you can teach for free. I don't care. It's not about, okay, I know I'm going to have a little rift with other people out there when they say you should teach for money. I'm like, oh, I have a job and I make money.
Right.
While I'm still able, I'm going to teach. And if you want to learn.
Right.
If you want to pay money to the guy that owns the building.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need it.
Yeah.
I can't get the art to prosper by only having people that can pay me. I mean, there's schools in this state as there is, and there's not very many.
Yeah.
So.
But people are always going to make the argument that if people don't pay, they don't value it as much, aren't they?
They'll value it when I hit them in the head.
There you go.
That's when they start to value the training. And I said,
Right.
okay, I'm gonna hit you now.
Yeah.
And then they put the block up and go, oh my God.
Yeah. Even for me, most of my clients like myself are on a fixed income. And so a lot of my work is free because I know how tight it is financially, even in these times. So I can relate to what he just said too.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me about structure. Like, is there such a thing as for both of you? Like, this is the first thing somebody who is starting to train with me, we got to do this first, or can it be? And can you start anywhere with anything?
Well, I'll evaluate them. You know, I'll play around with them and see what they got. Ask them what, you know, depending on their age. Like, there's a lot of us that are a little older now in my class. And so if something's hurting, they'll first thing you come through the door, tell me what's hurting. All right, we're not gonna do that shit today, you know. But if it's a new guy, you know, I've had a couple of new guys come in that are mid-50s, and I'm like, so what hurts, what doesn't hurt? I need to know.
Right.
Then they'll tell me, all right, so this is what we're gonna work on, and I'll let them try stuff. I'm not gonna make you do any spin kick. We're not gonna do any spinning hammer fist or nothing like that. We're gonna break it down, and I'm gonna go back into my Kyokushin days, and we're gonna just give me that straight reverse and a kick. We'll break it down.
Yeah.
If that leg don't work, we're gonna do the other leg. We'll make it easy.
Right. Yeah. Brandon, what about you? Is there a fixed curriculum as such?
Piggybacking on what he said, I'm very big on situational awareness. And I want to applaud you specifically for having Coach Blower on your show a couple weeks ago. Tony Blower, as you know, is really big on the 3Ds. And so when I am working with a person, regardless of whether they can move or not, I am grilling situational awareness into their minds,
right,
and really learning how to pick up body language and reading the person's body. Are they blading? Are they looking around? Are they anxious? Right now, I have an online student who has a really rare form of MS, and she's on a ventilator. And she emailed me one day, and she says, I want to learn jujitsu and to defend myself, but here's the thing. I have a really rare form of MS, and I'm on a ventilator. How can I learn? And I said, my friend, you can use your mind. And so I teach her situational awareness, and I have her watch videos and then write back to me and write notes about what to do in this situation or whatever. And she's so detailed, like she doesn't miss a beat.
Wow. And
so it's changing her life for the better. And so I start with the mind, and like Darin said, asking students what hurts them. That's a real thing, because I've had students that have chronic arthritis, and one day they might feel good, and the next they might feel like crap.
Right.
So that's why I rely more on the softer Aikido, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu style of wrist locks, because it doesn't take a whole lot of energy out of the body to do. And so I use whatever I can for a person. And it might just be more weapons based, learning how to use that knife or pocket stick or what have you. It really depends on the person. I'm able to do. My JKD experience has prepared me to adapt to really anybody. And I think that's how it should be across the board.
Right. Yeah. Favorite Larry Hartsell story?
Do you have any?
Fortunately, I didn't get to have the opportunity to do it.
Oh, okay. Oh.
But we do happen to have Bob Ryan sitting right over here.
Yeah.
Is he? I just assumed that he was busy and had no time for us.
No.
No, he's a busy man.
Yeah, you
there's
know.
this one story he tells about when Sifu came over and they were over at the house and they just got done doing a seminar, I think. And if I butcher this, I'm sorry, but I'm doing it.
Well, should we get the inestimable Mr. Ryan to tell us the story?
He doesn't want to come on camera.
Oh man.
But I think it goes, you know, they came over and they were having something about a move. Couldn't get it quite down or whatever. So they're at the house and Sifu Larry just picked up the table, moved out of the way, and they just marked right here, you know, get it down. Started working on some wrist locks and takedowns. And I think that's what he likes about it the most, that he's just anytime, any place, we'll go over it right now.
Right.
Let's go right now.
Yeah. My mom put a stop to that though, because that is really funny though. Larry is a gentle giant.
Mm-hmm.
He could kill you with his bare hands, but he would give you the shirt off his back.
Yeah.
My favorite story with him, I told you the figure four choke story when I was a little boy. Second to that is when I started gaining more leg strength and I could use my walker. Mm-hmm. He put a collie stick in my hand, standing up. I would hold on to one handlebar of my walker and we'd go over angles of attack with the collie stick. And since then, training with him, finding instructors like that exist today is like very, very rare.
Right. Yeah.
So he's definitely had a huge impact on my life as a martial artist. And it also just pains me that a lot of JKD instructors today don't mention Larry much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And all due respect to Guru Onosano and everything of the sort, but for me, my knowledge is from Hartsell, and I will always give him the respect he deserves.
Yeah. I think that sometimes with some people it boils down to who they spent most of their time with. Sure. But I don't know anybody who spent a lot of time with Larry Hartsell who does not think the world of him.
Mm-hmm. True.
You know, I mean, if you talk to, especially Rick Fay, mm-hmm. right? If you talk to Rick Fay, I mean, you know, so I think that's a lot of it, and I would tell you this. I used to run away from Larry Hartsell because I was too skinny. I never wanted him to grab me, you know. And but my introduction to Thai boxing, my first 3 minutes of double kicks of Muay Thai, he held the pads for me.
No, that's good.
Wow.
Oh yeah, right. Oh that's yeah. Good. So, you know, and he would just growl at me. He would just go, pressure, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's my Larry Hartsell story right there. So, all right, let's start to wrap this up. Give Jeet Kune Do people out there in the world a piece of your mind.
Oh boy.
The first piece that comes to your mind, give it to him.
Oh boy. Go ahead. I gotta calm down a little bit. Brandon can go.
Oh wow! So you use me to start. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me take a deep breath real quick. Usa. Love you guys to death, but I think we need to stop the political infighting over whether you're a concepts guy or whatever, who's got the right methodology, because you're not doing what Bruce Lee wanted you to do if you become so fixated on it has to be this way. Otherwise, you're not true to what Bruce Lee wanted. The thing that kept me in using the JKD philosophy and moniker was his wife. After he had passed, she told me that they always considered me to be their godson, and that put like just a stamp of okay, you can't really go anywhere now because of the level of respect that is.
Yep.
And so for me, I just get so disgusted with people in the community that infight all the time and say that they have the right understanding, when I think Bruce Lee said that sometimes you don't, when you use a boat to get to one side, you no longer need it, or something of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
But we become so fixated on things that we've made it into a structure, and it was never meant to be that way.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And so all that to say is that we need to breathe a breath of fresh air and rekindle what it actually was meant to be, not systematized, free-flowing expression of truth in combat.
Yeah.
Different for everybody.
Well, I think that somebody like you, who has been, for lack of a different expression, has been forced to adapt, right? Has been forced to use JKD in an adaptive manner. I think that somebody like you sees it more clearly than any of the idiots out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I'm not like you, and I'm very even keel with my mouth sometimes. I don't go call people idiots, but yes, that's what they are. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I call them idiots, I don't identify them individually, right?
Sure.
But you know, but they know who I mean.
Yeah. I feel you. My turn?
Yeah, Darin, go.
I mean, I love the concept of Jeet Kune Do. I always teach everything from Jeet Kune Do, no matter what I'm teaching, punching, kicking, grappling, whatever. I teach it from a concept in a zone. All right, so this is the concept we're going to work on. The zone that they attack you in is going to dictate the motion we're going to take.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think any harder than that.
Yeah.
That's what I take a lot from Jeet Kune Do from. That being said, now there's always is it traditional versus non-traditional and all this and that and that. And then it makes you want to break out another beer, right? You're just like, here we go. You know, I don't get it. Because I can see both sides, right? The very fact that if you are practicing martial art in the first place means you are a traditional person, because it's 5,000 plus years old.
Right.
Right. No matter what style. Martial arts, martial arts.
Yeah.
You're practicing. You're the little egg in this world that's practicing this. Not basketball, football, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a traditional stylist.
Mm-hmm.
How you implement it, that's up to you. Whether it's non-traditional or whatever. And like I was telling these guys, everybody that says, you know, I still teach, you know, the traditional 1967 count or whatever. And then the Taekwondo instructors that I had, I'm like, I'm a traditional stylist. I'm like, Taekwondo wasn't really starting until 1961. So how traditional are you? Your Stapham Nim is still alive. You know, it's not like even the Shodans or everything I had there. I still teach traditional Shotokan. You know, karate really wasn't formalized until 1957. They're still alive. So,
right.
You know, Jeet Kune Do was right behind that. You're all in the same birthing category.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I could go on. But
yeah. It's like there's still so much to learn. There's still so much to discover out there, right? It's like, how do people rationalize, put in the brakes on knowledge?
Yeah.
Right? How do they rationalize, put in the brakes on discovering more? I mean, none of the people that we admire in history did that.
No.
You know, everybody that we admired was somebody who was a go-getter.
Right.
Right. So I don't understand where they get off on, you know, anyhow. All right. So, okay. famous last words. Go, and we'll wrap this up.
Famous last words. Don't be afraid to explore. For me, over the last 5 years, people might get a giggle out of this, but I've actually found a love for discovering how karate plays a role in my life. because I was taught kata as a kid, but
Mhm.
no one ever broke down what the movements were. And so looking at like Kempo karate or Shotokan, dude, I see so much grappling in those arts and clinch fighting in those arts. So
Right.
I'm putting karate into what I already use. And like you said, there's so much to learn. And who's to say that we've reached the pinnacle of learning? Because I haven't. So
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, for anybody out there that's trying to learn something, pick something and go with it. Just, give it your best shot. You'll know after a while, like, this ain't for me.
yeah.
Pick something else.
Right.
That's a wonderful thing about nowadays compared to, in the 80s and the 70s, when I had to learn stuff, all you had was what was available and what you could get to in that tank of gas.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have all this stuff, whether or not you want to learn online, whatever. I mean, you better accept the fact that times are changing and there's a lot of people learning online now. So
Yeah. All right.
you can learn these other styles. There's many people, I'd say 99% of the people in my town will never leave that state. So
Interesting. Yeah.
for them to be like, well, this is it,
Right. Yeah.
This is all I need to know how to do is the John Wayne hook punch, No, there's probably more out there,
Yeah. All right. All right. Darin, Brandon, tell people the best way to get in touch with you. Anybody who
Yeah, so if you want to get plugged into the AMOS page, that's just Adaptive Martial Arts Science on Facebook. And I'll be having more videos rolling out here pretty soon. So
okay.
give us a like and we'll go from there.
All right. Darin?
WahooMartialArts.com, and you can send me a message anytime. I don't care who you are, I'll talk to you.
Well, I'm glad you talked to me.
Oh, it's fun time.
It's fun.
I like to have fun.
Right. And I apologize for all the snafus at the beginning.
That's all right.
Right.
If you come here to Nebraska, you're going to train like we do every year here, though. Everybody's got to go buy a 12-pack, and then we, have a little, then we train, because if you can't fight drunk, you can't fight.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, thanks very much for doing this. And somebody please give my regards to the elder, Mr. Ryan, right?
Will do.
Tell him I appreciate his efforts as well.
All right. No
All right,
problem.
man. You guys have a great evening. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
We're going to look at one of the most quickest and effective ways of striking, and we're going to look at what's called a finger jab. Now, obviously I'm not in my wheelchair right now, but the way to think about this is if I'm sitting down in any kind of chair and my attacker is grabbing me, I'm going to take my 2 fingers, maybe these first 3, and I'm going to go right into the attacker's eye or even throat. It does not take a whole lot of strength to do this. So what you want to do is you just want to imagine driving your fingers in a piston motion really quick right into the eyes, okay? And this is not 100% all the time, because I could try and throw this and my attacker move their head away. This is just an option to throw this finger jab right into the eyes of your attacker and take them out of the game, so you can do whatever you need to get away, whatever it is, yell for help, etc. So don't sleep on eye pokes, because I was training one day and my partner got me with the eye jab and my whole body shut down and I couldn't respond physically anymore. So and I had to have a minor surgery to fix my retina. So practice this at home on a padded surface or focus mitt, and it's just boom, boom, right to the eyes, and you should get an illicit reaction out of the attacker. Again, this is not 100%, so this is just a building block for strikes you can do sitting down or even practicing underneath like myself. Hope that helps. Have a good day.